flat again in a couple of years, it may just go back to the 5-year. Because it costs money to do a revaluation, right? That's part of what you need to consider. And sometimes it makes sense to do a revaluation, and sometimes it's probably better to wait. And I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just giving you some options, or going to let you know about what you should be thinking about. The first thing you should do is look at your 2022 ratio study, because that's going to really tell you what the market's doing in Lyme and how far off you are. As far as whether you want to implement a revaluation, there's the option of the selectmen have the option of introducing a warrant article. I don't know how close you are to the deadlines on that. Judy, you have a better...
We have someone in town, someone's in town, I think we're going to submit a petition warrant article.
Petition, okay.
The date for that is February 7th.
Okay. So those would be, if the town wanted to do it on their own, I think that would have already taken place, or would have had to already have been...
already done that.
To take place. But the other option is to do a petition warrant article, and then it gets voted up or down at the town meeting. The practicality of doing a 2023 revaluation, I suppose it's possible that somebody could take that project on. I don't know if Todd's talked to the town about that at all. I don't know if anybody's read the Vermont Digger. Always an interesting document. But they have a really interesting article about, not only does it talk about the fact that there's no requirement for an every 5-year reval, but they also have this, the litmus test there is that when the common level of appraisal, which is essentially like our ratio study, falls between 85, or outside of the 85% to 115%, you're supposed to do a reval. So, there are, according to their reporting, something in the neighborhood of 137 communities who should be doing a revaluation this year. All right, so the whole purpose of this article really was to talk about the grading of appraisal. Not that we look like we're great, but the whole point of this thing is basically saying there's not enough people out there to do this work. There's an outfit called New England Municipal Resources Center. They're saying they apparently do quite a bit of appraisal work in Vermont. They're adding that the company is currently booked through 2025 for projects. So my guess is, and maybe you've done some homework on this, but if the petition warrant article passes, my guess is that it may or may not be 2023. I would imagine 2024 would probably be the more likely thing, but I don't know that, and I haven't done any investigation on that. Yeah.
I might not be connecting here, but you said we could do our homework. If we wanted to reproduce the ratios ourselves, should we be able to see which properties were excluded and why?
Well, so you could do it, but I'm not going to say that. So basically what happens is the town and the assessor usually, provide the information to the DRA. Then our equalization bureau comes back with any questions that they have, and we usually have quite a few questions. I can't speak for Todd's track record, but for some assessors, there's tons of questions. And they might be, what? You said this was a invalid sale. What's your criteria for that? They're required, when they invalidate a sale, there's supposed to be a comment as to why.
34 excluded sales in Lyme.
In Lyme?
I think there were 30.
Out of how many? Because that's
out of 100. Out of 190 something.
That seems like a really high number for sales in Lyme.
We're trying to figure that out.
Okay. So
when Todd did the
well, that's what they're trying to figure out. So let me just talk to you a couple of things about a couple of things that actually, even a 2-year period, there wouldn't be that many sales, I don't think. So let's just go back to that ratio study we looked at. Okay, this will give you a rough idea of how many are excluded or included. In 2021, so not the 2020, but the 2021, there was a total of 44 sales in the any and all strata. So that means that there was 44 sales that were 6 months before and after April 1 of 2021. Now, the next one is the sales that have PA34. PA34 is a document that's supposed to be used, it's not always used, it's supposed to indicate whether or not it's an arm's length sale. You know, you can ask 10 ways to Sunday about why somebody thinks it's arm's length or not arm's length, and you're probably not going to get good answers. Or you're going to get no answers, and a lot of times they don't turn this information in. So I'm going to get to that in a second, as far as other ways to qualify sales. But if you go, again, total strata the total was 44, and the valid ones were 24. So you're roughly going 50%, and I don't think that's a bad number. It's going to depend on the market. It's going to depend on where you are in the state. There's certainly parts of the state where there's more. I bet you actually in your town, because I remember my wife we moved out of town 7 years ago, and we are still on the listserv. So let's face it though, you know how you sell property here in Lyme, right? I mean, it may go through Martha Diebold Real Estate or somebody else, but there's a lot of properties that say, we're going to be listing our house next week with Martha, but if you have an interest or know somebody else who's got an interest, give us a call. So you probably have a fairly high percentage of sales that are non-brokered sales, and it's hard to imagine they wouldn't be considered open market sales if they were on the, if they were on the market on the listserv. Now, whether somebody's going to know that or not remains to be seen, but so just be aware of the fact that there's other ways to sell a property. So anyways, in that case, we had 24 out of 44. And in the prior year, you had total strata was 52, and you had 24. Okay, so, 50 plus or minus, and I think that's not a bad rule of thumb. So roughly 50% of the sales are not going to be valid sales. So as far as the qualification, at the last page I provided you is a full list of all the sale codes or sales, the reasons the sale would be excluded. I mean, there's quite a few. And there might be multiple reasons. It was a piece of current use land and my neighbor bought it, or it was an abutter sale, or could be 3 or 4 reasons. So the assessor is supposed to put down the best reason that he considers an unqualified sale and why is it unqualified, with a code that matches this list of codes. Then it comes into the DRA. We have a bureau of 3 or 4 people that review every sale to make, basically going to double check. Not every sale is going to be, reason to double check, but basically, whether it's Manchester or Orange, if they have any questions, they're going to call the assessor or call the town and double check on why they said this was an unqualified sale. Yep.
Is it good to tell the assessor, for instance, if you've done a 1031 exchange and you're running up against a time deadline, you might be willing to pay a lot more than you other would have?
Yeah, I'm not sure what code that would be, but Todd might know. But anyways, it's that would be something that you would want to let the assessor know, and that would, potentially be a sale that would be considered not distressed, but an urgent sale. So there's quite a few codes there. And to the question about current use, so. Current use current use land is assessed on its agricultural capability, not on market value that's established by the assessor. So that's why those are thrown out. Now, there was a question that came to me by Rich Brown, and it basically was asking, is it possible to put those sales back in? Okay, so for our equalization study, they're not going to include those. However, we can do a trial ratio study, or Todd could do a ratio study for you that actually keeps those in there. So for the purposes of keep in mind our ratio study, the predominant reason we do a ratio study is to apportion values in communities that share school districts and bring them to a common level of assessment. So I now live in Jaffrey, New Hampshire, but Peterborough, New Hampshire is part of the Conval School District. Might have heard about it. There's a little lawsuit going on. Claremont 3. But basically, you got seven, or it's either 7 or 9 districts, or towns that feed into one school district. So Dublin might have done a revaluation this year. It might be at 100% of market value. Peterborough might have done it 2 years ago. It might be at 80% of market value. And Bennington might have done it 4 years ago. It might be at 60% of market value. So the primary reason that Linda Kennedy equalizes and does these ratio studies is to basically bring everybody to market value. So in other words, Dublin is still at 100%. Peterborough comes up 20%, and Bennington comes up 40%. And basically to get everybody to a common level so that everybody's paying their share based on recent sales. Because some towns that did revals 4 years ago and some towns are doing them this year. And the idea is to level the playing field for apportioning contributions for common school districts or the county. So basically 2023, the practicality of doing a revaluation, it's entirely up to the homework that maybe you've already done. I would say that the 2022 ratio study would be the next step for you. And I think the other question was, again from Rich Brown's group, was that what is the citizen's remedy? I'm going to just read these, if that's all right.
Go ahead.
I could show you some of the homework.
So what?
Some of the homework that we've done.
Okay. So I saw some of it, so a couple of things that I want to point out, because I think I heard rumblings about a revaluation, or about the revaluation that happened in 2021. We thought that it was statistically valid, and Phil's crew reviewed sales that were used in the analysis that Todd put together. I don't know how many of you have looked at the USPAP manual or the USPAP book that's at your town hall, but it's public information.
We tried.
We've tried.
Okay.
We also know that there are properties that were included that shouldn't have been, and there were properties that were excluded that we can't find documentation for why they were excluded.
Okay.
So we have questions.
Okay. And have you broached that with the Board of Selectmen or the
Yes.
assessor? Okay.
Repeatedly.
Okay. I would say the only other thing I could say is that our Equalization Bureau could report to you what we have for sales from 2021, but presumably so could the town.
So we know how to calculate the COD and PRD, and your summary statistics that you've shared with us are fine, but we would like to see the list of properties that you've used and to do those calculations.
Sure.
Because
We can provide that.
When we hear a report back from
I'm
Todd,
working on that right now.
Okay.
He sent me a list, there's a whole bunch of stuff.
Okay.
But when Todd reports back that a preliminary study shows that the COD is within parameters, he doesn't share the list of properties that we've included.
Right.
And we can see the Grafton County records,
Yeah.
and we can tell who has transfer taxes, and we can do our own analysis. And
Well-
I have some other information I'd like to share with you.
Equalization report, what we do was list all those.
So I think
That's the reasons why.
I heard Dina say that she was going to provide that. I don't know if that was for 2021.
I thought she was talking about the 2021, I didn't know she was talking.
Okay.
I'm trying to resolve the 30 properties that have been excluded without documentation. There's also the 3 that were included that we know they shouldn't have been. We've got an example of sales chasing apparently in the data. We have some, I'd like to share with you
Okay.
some
Well,
graphs.
I'm happy to take whatever you have. Is this for 2021?
It was.
We started with 2021 and we've gone forward.
Okay. Because I will say that I know that the evidence that was provided to me regarding the 2021 that I saw was largely comparing taxes and how the low-end values seem to go up in value at a higher rate than the high-end values. I'm here to tell you that that happened throughout New Hampshire. And if you did, like you had, was it Carroll that you had? Oh, Carroll's probably a bad example, but we had some towns that did revals this past year where some portions of the town were at 50% of market value, like some property types, like mobile homes, okay? And some were at 80% of market value. So when there's a reval that's done after that, the mobile homes are gonna go up. They're gonna double. And the single family homes that were at 80% are gonna go up 20%. So know that the part of the statistics are just representing what's happening in the market. After a revaluation is done, you know, the subsequent sales are going to indicate, you know, what things are selling for after the fact. And some of those are going to be, you know, depending on the market for those properties. Mobile homes in Rockingham County have been just, I mean, you're looking at this mobile home park and you'd be like, how come somebody would spend $300,000 on this? It's affordable. It's the only affordable property in Rockingham County. And it's, you know, so we're happy to take back whatever you have for questions.
Can we hand out this?
Sure.
Shall we hand it, Rich, you want to hand out?
Is that something I've already got?
No.
We finish the informational part
Yeah.
tonight, and then if you wanna stay and do all that,
Yeah.
you can.
Okay. So as far as the rest, so basically, so there's, one of the questions was, what if we think there's something wrong? Okay? And I don't know if you're talking about 2022 information. 2021, essentially, that revaluation is sailed. If you've got a complaint, you have some options. I always recommend that you talk to the assessor or the Board of Selectmen. In the year of a revaluation, you should definitely be attending hearings when you first hear about a new value that you don't understand. And then there's also the BTLA. And the BTLA has quite a few options. BTLA can basically hear an abatement, or an appeal of abatement, so that's like a one property situation. They can also, I'm going to just